Welcome to Queued Up. I've found 3 of my favorite people to queue up in a ranked match with me, starting with the man, the myth, the legend to my left here, Chris, a.k.a. Topher, a.k.a. Party Foul, a.k.a. Hots World Champion. Love that about you, Chris. Kepley, a.k.a. Mr. Tumbleweed, a.k.a. the friend you call at 3 a.m. to come get you from jail.
That's very sweet.
Eli, a.k.a. Eli the Ninja, a.k.a. the Halo Goat. And then myself, CJ, a.k.a. the Pathfinder, a.k.a. the Average Gamer Bro.
Notice how everyone got a gaming intro but me? I'd rather have yours, to be honest. It just makes you sound like a better human being than the rest of us, let's be real.
We got an exciting show for you today. First, we're going to visit First Strike. We're going to talk League of Legends. We're going to get all up in that stuff. Then we're going to visit some Counter-Strike. We're going to go Call of Duty. And then after that, we're going to talk Spectre Divide. What happened with that game? What is going on with Spectre Divide? And then lastly, we'll leave you some TFT knowledge. I think that'll be something interesting. But we're going to jump right into this part of the show. League of Legends First Strike. Something crazy happened, Chris, okay? And I need to know what is going on. KC beat Top Esports yesterday morning. And I don't know how it happened, but I need to understand that. So I'm going to let you tell us how that happened.
Top fell asleep. Looking at their drafts, I did not like any of their drafts going into that game. But KC, though, they did, as I said, I've said this a lot in the office, that there's 2 sides to KC. There's a heads and a tail side. Either they're going to play like they did versus G2 the first time when they got just completely beat down, or they're going to play like they did when they beat G2 in the grand finals. And then now they've kind of started showing up as they beat G2 in the grand finals. They've realized maybe we don't put Yike on, Vi. Maybe we just try to put him on the Sejuani, which he's looked really good on. They've started finding success in that. Their bot lane is actually doing really well. I think it's one, it's really rising up there, and it's helped them out a lot. Vladdy is playing a lot better. Not playing the Aurora as much either, so he's playing better champs that he's on. And I think all these changes have allowed them, to surprise TS and then get that one win. That's really helped them out, because if they lost that, they would have been pretty much, done and out.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think we talked about it when we met last time, right? What needed to happen for KC to beat TES? They need to have the G2 treatment. They needed to not show up, right? And that's exactly what happened. I don't think that happens, any other day, I believe. I think TES is just too good of a team. But KC, I mean, that is a surprising win. And I don't have to wear a clown outfit because they lost later, right, versus Hanwha. But that was a really good series, so I will have to give it to them there. They did show up, and they are the best competition that HLE have had yet. Yeah, I mean, on that note, KC versus HLE was insane. I mean, KC showed that they're quite diverse in their champion pools, and I think this new the new draft structure is what's really allowing them to shine. Kalist on the Jhin popped off. What did he drop? 18 and 3, I want to say. He absolutely carried that game. And I'm a bit biased because I'm a Jhin main myself. So to see a young talent pop off with my favorite champion, that was a treat to watch. But of course, HLE, they're too strong. They're not gonna let it happen more than once. So they ended up taking that series 2-1.
Yeah, it was crazy. I'm not really a Jhin main, and I've played a couple times. I'm not really good. The ult is like, there's this delayed shot with it every time. And it's funny to watch the pros do it because he did damage with that ultimate, but ultimately that wasn't the thing that won them those fights. It was the in-between stuff, just the damage and being able to kite and keep away and just constantly knock them down. And there was just some good team fights. It felt like they picked all the right spots whenever they were fighting. I don't know. Do you, Kep, do you think it was only a draft thing, or do you think they picked their spots well?
I don't want to take away from what KC did, right? Because Kalist had an amazing game on Jhin. That's how you 1v9, right? Yeah. What he did. Everyone's in the backpack. But I just blame HLE more. I think that HLE, they're a team that historically, right, you see it in the LCK all the time. If they feel like they're better than you, they're just having a good time, right? They're memeing on you, and those mistakes can add up. And I think KC caught enough of those mistakes, right, where you start to see advantage of that. And that's why, while they did pull out that win, after that, it was like, all right, guys, people think KC's even with us. Let's take the gloves off, let's go into game 3, and let's just smash them. So, I mean, it is a good performance, but I blame HLE more than I praise KC for that. But hey, man, that was a great Jhin game, and it led for a lot of exciting things as a viewer, right? So, Kalist, he definitely is on my map now as a good player.
Yeah. It's TES. By the way, just it's a KC versus TES. You said HLE, I think you mean TES.
Well, we started talking about it. We
okay.
flipped into
Yeah, got it. Okay.
I mean,
versus TES. I mean, that was just I think that was same thing, right? KC played phenomenal, but TES just didn't show up.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were sleeping at the wheel.
Absolutely. Chris, closing thoughts on the KC and TES match?
KC, I mean, as he said, if we were to re-see that matchup, I think it would be completely different.
Yeah.
TS is going to pick something that they're more used to. They're going to ban away those things that KC are good with, and then they're going to win because they are a much better team-fighting team. Even in the games, they did win, but game one was actually pretty close between them two. You know, KC was able to find the late game picks that they needed to end up winning, but TS was hanging in there the whole entire time with them, you know. So we see that change. We see some better picks out of TES, you know, pretty much the same point at Gen G, right? They don't get caught sleeping at the wheel. They take it easily.
Yeah. Okay, moving on to our next match, which was also yesterday, the CFO versus HLE match.
Or no, so CFO versus...
Oh, TL. Team Liquid.
TL was...
Sorry, that was
this morning.
That was this morning. Yeah. I'm looking at the wrong day. That's my fault right here. I'm like, oh,
Your yesterday, it was at like 4 a.m., so it feels like
Okay, so
time change.
CFO TL happened this morning. I did watch this game. I got to check it out. Obviously, I'm rooting for Liquid the whole time, right? But just this one, it felt like they did not pick their spots well. I feel like they tried to come out swinging, found a couple different openings, were able to keep up, but ultimately got outclassed for the mid-game and end-game. But I don't know. What do you think, Chris?
I halfly agree. So I'm really not going to put this, you know, sugarcoat it. I'm upset with Umpty. I think he is bringing Team Liquid down far below the actual level of the other 4 players. I think Yeon and Core JJ can easily get up into one of the top 3 in this, you know, between these 5 teams as one of the best bot lane duos. I think, you know, they're a little bit behind HLE and TES when it comes down in terms of mechanics, but they are really good, and Yeon has showed how good he is on everything he's been picking. Maybe outside of that Zig 6 today, which I'm still, you know, kind of wondering, we'll talk about that a little bit later, but Umpty is consistently making mistakes. Most notably today when he played Vi and decided that he wanted to Q in and then ult a Cassante, knowing that there are multiple times that Cassante will just make himself invulnerable and not be able to get CC'd. But he can, you know, blows it on there, gives, you know, the Cassante a way to get out, jumping onto APA, ends up getting the first blood. Of course, you know, Diver playing really good at that point, but at the same time, it's like, he shouldn't be making these mistakes. He's coming from a major region. He's coming straight over from Korea into NA. He should be doing a lot better, but he's consistently getting outclassed, and I think he is by far the worst jungler at first stand right now.
Kepley?
Well, we know from Tuesday I'm a big CFO fan. I think CFO has shown up. I think that they're really putting that region on the map. So I actually feel like this is one of like your times when you're getting smurfed on by another region as Liquid, right? Like Liquid, I think has a lot of growing pains. Yeon is, you know, I won't ever talk bad about him. I do think Umpty's a problem. I hate to say it, I actually feel like Impact's more of a problem. I feel like Impact's a bit outclassed against other top laners here. His champion pool, right? It's hard for him to ever jump onto like a true tank or a true carry type champion and get to shine these days. He's pretty much, you know, for a long time he was Shin. He was, you know, Ornn, right? He's really good on tanks, but to put him on a carry where he can step up and shine and showcase his skill, it doesn't seem to mesh with what Liquid have put together the past few years. So you have this weird dynamic there. Plus, you're just against like fantastic players like Junji and Driver on Oyster, right? They're good players. They can step up and match them equally. So then your bottom lane, if Yeon can't 1v9 basically, right? Because that seems like the Liquid formula. And Appa, I mean, I just haven't seen enough out of Appa to really be able to get a good opinion on him. But he doesn't seem like the one that can step up and 1v9 carry like Yeon.
Closing thoughts, Eli.
Yeah, I mean, from what I saw, it looked like Hong Q, the mid laner for Oyster, was extremely strong, especially on the Azir. I mean, he was making plays, just pushing enemies into his entire team, and they're just getting wombo comboed on repeat. So that was really cool to see. And then Team Liquid, like Chris said, I mean, Umpty was kind of inting in a few spots, like just sitting in the enemy jungle for no reason and then realizing that they have no way out and then getting spotted, and now the whole team is now moving across the map to try to save him, but he ends up just leading them all to their death essentially. And then like Doggo on the Tristana is
maybe 200 HP. So 3 guys go after him. They all get CC'd by other players, and then Doggo gets a triple kill for free. And now he's fed, and Tristana just runs away with it. It's like, I don't know. It looked really sloppy on the side of Team Liquid, but at the same time, I do think the Oyster squad is like, I don't know. People are more so dogging on Liquid, but it's like Oyster was doing a lot of really good stuff at the same time. So interesting matchup.
It is an interesting matchup, and we'll get to see the next one, which is going on tomorrow really quickly, which is going to be Team Liquid versus Hanwha. And so I don't know if we got a shot. I don't think we have to win it, though, in order to make the playoffs. Kepley, thoughts?
We don't have to win it to make the playoffs, but if we do win it,
Yeah.
we do pull off the miracle, we're locked in. Boy, would I love to see that. Would I love to see Team Liquid win? I think that if Liquid shows up and plays like they did today, no shot at all. But I said that before, right? I said that about KC, and they woke up. So I truly don't believe. I mean, Hanwha's going to really have to meme for Liquid to take a series off of them. Now, we might get a game, right? But their Hanwha's champ pool is too deep. Liquid is too stagnant. They're not as creative. They make a lot of mistakes like that, getting caught out. And Hanwha's just going to, play with their food and eat it at the same time.
Eli, can I put any money on TL?
If you're getting really good odds, like astronomical odds, you could put some money on TL. It just doesn't look doable, man. I'll be completely honest. Like you said, we might get a meme win where Zeka decides to lock in Zed like we saw in the prior series.
That's not even a meme win. If he locks in Zed, I think Liquid are done for at that point.
I mean, the Zed was pretty clean. But like, I don't know. It just feels. It doesn't feel like we said today. What we saw from Liquid was really bad. They need to go back to their hotel rooms and have like a come to Jesus moment, and like completely change the way they're interacting with each other. If they're going to have any type of chance.
I do want to be fair to that because I think the big thing with Liquid was very good at lane swapping. So this being the first tournament, where their lane swapping's
They're
gone.
nerfed.
Yeah, so Liquid got nerfed like really hard with that because Impact's really good at that. He can play a tank. He can survive these 1v2s. He's very good at that gameplay. So now when you start looking at Impact versus other top laner, Appa versus, you've always said Appa versus other mid laner, but now Appa needs to actually be able to go and help top lane more as opposed to just focusing on bot lane. Same with the jungler. I think they're still trying to figure out that formula, but I don't know if they'll have time to solve it to deal with Hanwha.
Yeah. All right. Chris, let's look at the bottom lane of that side. Does the bottom lane of Liquid have a chance against Hanwha at all? Because I feel like that might be an area of weakness for them.
No. I think Viper and Delight are by and far the best bot lane. I actually think that each lane, except for Kanavi maybe being over Peanut, is what I would put if I were to make an all-star roster. From first stand right now, it would be Zeus top, Kanavi from TES jungle, second mid, and then Delight and Viper in the bot lane. It's just they have their synergy. Viper today was juking everybody, breaking ankles, trying to find kills. Even in the loss, he was doing stuff and almost ended up with a positive KDA as well. I don't think Yeon right now can beat Viper. Core JJ is solid, but at the same time, Delight has also been making some amazing plays. As this outplay on CFO today when Sejuani dove into the tower and he ended up getting an assisted kill after Viper died because of how he was able to stun Sejuani under the tower, knowing the mechanics almost perfectly. So right now, I really think where Yeon and Core JJ can maybe run with them, it's going to be really dependent on how the other three do for them to be able to take a win in this game right now.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting one to watch. After that, we're going to get to see CFO versus TES. So Eli, tell me, can TES bounce back and take down CFO?
I think so. TES coming into this were certainly favorites over CFO. Yeah. CFO have shown they have some fighting power though, so I wouldn't be surprised if we saw some close matches or CFO to even take a game, but at the end of it all, I kind of see TES taking that one.
Cap, what about you? Give me what the details is in the middle of it.
I want top esports to win.
Yeah, the whole thing, really?
No, I want them to win this matchup.
Okay, yeah.
Because if they win this matchup, KC packs their bags to go home.
Yeah.
Liquid stays.
So you feel like less of a clown?
Less of a clown.
He's just repping NA here.
But
okay.
So the NA fans are going TES.
Yeah, if you're a North American fan, this is your hope to move on in the tournament. because we expect Liquid to lose, right? So it doesn't change much there. So then if Top wins, then Liquid gets to go forward. If Oysters win, then Liquid goes home because of the way the tiebreakers work. So we have 3 teams that are 1 and 3. They all beat each other. Top got beat 2-0 by I'm blanking on the name.
KC?
By KC, thank you.
Yeah.
And then KC got beat 2-1 by Liquid, and Liquid beat 2-0. So because of that one win, right, that KC got on Liquid, that one win, even though Liquid lost the series, they would lose the tournament if Oysters win. So that's like the dynamic there. So
yeah.
NA fans want Top to win. Now as for the matchup itself, I actually think Oysters are gonna smurf on Top Esports, man. I think Oysters are the better team, but I want Top to win.
Yeah. Interesting. Chris?
I think TS has had enough time to watch CFO now to kind of know what they're good at. They know they're going to swap the top lane. They know they're going to, make that, substitution as they do every single game for CFO. So they should know by now the type of, we can see the game plank out of the second one. Sorry, I can't remember his name. Driver's counterpart there in the top lane. But we know that both of them can play either carries and or tanks, so they'll have to just pre-prepare for that. But at the same time, I think they've kind of had their meme game a little bit versus KC. So I think TS can maybe pull it out now. And then hopefully, I'm hoping as well that they pull it out because I do want Liquid to move on as much as I don't really want to see Empty play anymore for my, blood pressure. But I still would rather them move on so that way we can meme on, EU a little bit more for first stand.
Driver's the name you're looking for, by the way.
Yes.
There you go. Yeah, so those matches will be on tomorrow morning. We'll watch those, and then ultimately we'll enter the playoff session where we're going to see if anybody's going to be able to take down Hanwha. Hanwha and Oyster have already guaranteed their playoff, by the way. So those guys are definitely going. It's just who are our other 2 teams at this point. But put down in the comments, let us know who do you think's going to win, why are they going to win, why is it Hanwha, why do you guys all say Hanwha? Okay, probably because it's the best. Switching gears, though, let's talk some Counter-Strike action. We've been watching a lot of the, the Season 21 Counter-Strike event going on right now. It's been 2 Swiss stages, a lot of matches. We're now entering the playoffs. We saw a match earlier today, which was Team Spirit versus, I'm blanking on the team.
Eternal Fire.
Eternal Fire, thank you. So Team Spirit versus Eternal Fire, we saw that today. It went down. It was a close match, went game 3. Did not expect that from Team Spirit. They kind of started out slow, but we watched it, Eli. What was the big impactful moment for you on that one?
What was surprising was Donk really not doing Donk things, to be honest. He was started off really slow. Game 3 even, he was starting off slow. Like the 2 games that, all the games were very close, first of all. But whenever Donk was struggling, that's when Eternal Fire was like kind of taking advantage of it and starting to pop off. We saw Woxic that guy is a machine with the op. Like that guy, if I'm ever in a game and I see that guy on the other side, I'm just going to quit out, man. I don't want to just get opt on repeat. He was doing that to Spirit in very impressive fashion. But honestly, it was like every single player on all teams was doing really well, except for Donk, which is like the opposite of what we're used to seeing.
Yeah, and I think well for him might be he was just even.
Right, exactly. His worst KD was like slightly positive or even, right?
But you normally see him multiple positives, those kind of things. Chris, you got to watch a little bit of the series. What were your thoughts?
I liked what Eternal Fire was doing. I think, when you're going against a team like Spirit, who people may be even saying this is going to be the winner, they ended up, bringing it to that third map, although it did seem a little scary. And at first I was watching, I believe, they're like 9-3 or something like that. I go turn around to watch a little bit of League of Legends and then turn back, and then Spirit's bringing it close, but they pull it out. So it's really cool to see teams be able to do that. But again, looking at the scoreline, I didn't actually see what Donks was, so it's kind of, hard to hear that he wasn't having the best game, but it really goes to show how well the supporting cast is behind, like how good the rest of the teammate, I don't want to say supporting cast, but his teammates are, that they're able to, pull up and, find that win, even if, a star player isn't having the best game. So it's really cool to see that. But then now the question is how will Donk, will he, take it to heart because he's young, or will, he have the maturity to go into the next match and just, drop a 30 bomb?
Yeah.
I would say one thing that was really noticeable while we were watching it, going to the player cams, he was showing a lot of emotion, like putting his face in his hands and like just pounding on the desk when he would die because he's like 2 and 8 or something. He's just not used to being in that position, right? Yeah. So you're right. It's like, how does he battle against adversity? But after game 1, which they won, by the way, but it was like close. It was a lot closer than it should have been. Everyone on Eternal Fire
You're good.
and Spirit, except for Donk, all left to like go for a bathroom break or smoke. I mean, they're all Russian, right? They're probably smoking a cigarette. But Donk is the only one still sitting at his station. He's just shooting bots. And it's like, he's not happy with his performance. And he's like really taking the steps to step it up. So I think that he will take it to heart and like kind of power up in his next series is what I'm expecting.
Yeah, map 1 was also on Nuke. And it went overtime, double overtime actually.
Yeah.
Spirit was able to kind of put 4 rounds together after during the second overtime. But you saw Eternal Fire really trying to battle back into this one, just trying to, and ultimately is a game they probably should have won. I don't know, Kep, what are your thoughts? What do you think?
I only got to see game 1.
Yeah.
I didn't even get to finish it so I could come here to the studio and record. But, you know, you start off that game, Chopper, he gets an ace, right, in pistol round. Second round, Donk gets a 4-piece, right? So you're up. You got all the momentum. I think they carried it. It was like 5-6 rounds straight. And then Eternal Fire, I think, to speak highly to them and why, you know, they're a team that I feel like gets a little disrespected just because they're going against Spirit. But Eternal Fire is one of those kind of top 4, top 5 teams. I feel like in a lot of people's mind, the analysts that were talking about today were saying the same thing. So it's good that they have that resilient nature, and I think that they'll keep showing up. And, you know, Donk has a weakness. So right now, I think as we're recording, Mouse and G2 are playing. Whoever wins that, right? If it's G2 as an example, like if Spirit plays like they do today, I think it's reasonable G2 could show up and beat Spirit. And that would be, as far as I know, if I'm new to this scene, a big upset.
Yeah.
Right?
Eternal Fire has 2 names that are well known within the Counter-Strike community, which in Woxic and Wakadia. Like, those guys have been around for a while. They're the kind of the veterans. And then the one that's shining, I'm looking at the leaderboard right now, you have Joda, who's just like, who went off. He had a 1.29 KD. He made a lot of big plays in that game. Took down Donk a couple rounds in a row and really was one of those shutdown factors for Donk. But I don't know, maybe that was a factor, maybe it wasn't. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, in this type of game, when you're playing a team like Spirit, everyone has to show up. And if everyone, especially those veteran players, but then you have the 3rd and 4th teammate that can, you know, put up some positive numbers as well. I mean, I did get to see some of those, you know, ops from Woxic, you know, when I'm walking through the office and turn around and then bam, 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 you just see him, you know, hitting those, you know, clean shots on everyone. It's obviously going to help that team out and then put, you know, pressure on someone like Spirit. It is a shame that, you know, they had to get knocked out round 1 because I kind of really wanted to see what they could have done against maybe a team that's not considered the favorite. Maybe they could have made it to that semifinals in the playoffs. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes. But, you know, I think they have to feel pretty good about that. You know, obviously the loss is going to suck. It's always going to lose. But, you know, what you can take out of it moving into maybe another major or into another season is we took one of the best teams to 3 maps in a quarterfinal. We, you know, took it, you know, to the limit almost. Now we know we can improve. Now we know we can get to that level. What adjustments can we make going forward? And then maybe apply that to the next one.
Yeah, absolutely. And you see, Nuke is actually Spirit's pick. So they win their pick. It was close, right, in that overtime. The analysts after the game were definitely saying that, like, EF is kind of beating themselves up because they didn't win that game. Probably should have taken Nuke off of Spirit. And Spirit did not look good at all, mostly because of Donk, right? Map 2, Anubis, which is EF's pick. And they were up pretty handsomely at one point. I think it was 11-4 at the half. Spirit does bring it back to a 13-10 in the end. But ultimately, one of the maps that EF does win their pick. And I think that's impactful when you look at the actual teams and how they measure up to each other. And then the map 3 Mirage. When we started watching that, I was like, oh, this is definitely going to be a Spirit map. It's one of their stronger maps, and we've seen them play. And normally Mirage is kind of a go-to where just when you look on paper, the better team that is statistically better is normally good at it because everyone plays Mirage. It's a map that everyone has a lot of reps on, where Anubis is a newer one, and EF has probably been grinding it out. So when you look at that, it's like one of these things where I think Spirit's going to take it, and they do end up taking the map. But interesting on the pick bans here, Spirit is an instant remove for Inferno on all of theirs. It's all their first bans. And then Eternal Fire normally always takes Ancient off. So it's like those are two maps that those guys aren't playing at all. Kep, if you think you are on one of these teams and you're trying to figure out how to beat one of these guys, is like, are you looking at their pick bans and you're trying to use that to your advantage? And then if so, what is that advantage?
Yeah, I think so. I actually, while you were talking, I pulled up the stats real fast for Spirit. Their 3 worst maps are the 3 maps they played today, right? So they have, now I want to say worst subjectively, right? Nuke, they have a 75% win rate on, right?
It's
Mirage,
pretty good if one of your worst maps is 75% win rate.
Mirage is a 66%, and then Anubis is a 57%.
Okay.
So those are your 3 worst maps. They actually don't have Inferno on here, probably because they
just
all
don't
the
play
time.
it.
Yeah, they don't play it. But so if you're thinking about it from Eternal Fire's perspective, really this is the best hand you could have drew, right? Statistically, it's their worst because they have a 100% win rate on Train, so don't put them there. And then Dust 2 is a 90%, and that's typically their first pick, right? So I think that it factors in a lot. Obviously, if you can get Spirit onto Anubis, right, you have much better odds to win. So that's one map, and then you only need to take one more. So Mirage or Nuke, and Nuke looked really doable today. I mean, I think that Eternal Fire, the couple gunfights go different ways. That's an easy win because they weren't playing like ramp as well to go down underneath the map for that bomb site. So there was a lot of good pressure points. And I think other teams, better teams, right, to go along that narrative that Eternal Fire isn't a top team, someone like a Navi, right, or even a G2 or even Liquid, right, when Liquid shows up, that could be opportunities to learn from and push Spirit down and knock them out of this tournament.
Yeah. Eli, anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, the stats are really interesting to me. Where did Nuke fall on that? What's their win rate on Nuke?
75%.
That's the 75. Yeah, because honestly, they didn't look bad. I saw a lot of really good plays from Magix specifically, who impressed me a lot in the first game. Felt like Magix was having, like, without the plays that Magix and Chopper were making, they lose that for sure. But Magix was, like, always in really tricky, unpredictable spots and making really smart big brain rotations. So I think that, I don't know, as a team, I think they need to like really tap into those coordinated rounds and what was different about their cohesion in those versus there were some rounds that it just felt like they were very discombobulated, out of place, not really working together. And it's like, maybe they have too many different strategies and they need to just hone it down to a few that they're good at. Does that become too predictable? I don't know. It's such a difficult thing as a top team, right? It's like finding that balance for every single map is difficult, but I think that with more reps, Spirit will figure it out.
Yep. It's one of those things where we'll continue to see them. They're going to move on to the semifinals match, and they actually played the winner of Mouse and G2, which is going on. And, I think around the room, G2 is a lot of our dark horses. So we like we liked you too. We want G2 to win. Hopefully, Mouse is coming from the PGL event where they won recently, and so they're a little bit hot. They look okay. They don't look amazing. But initial thoughts on this one, Chris? What do you think? Do you have any direction you think we should go on the Mouse and G2? Do we just say, hey, J2, this is our path?
Well, first things
before
first.
you jump into it,
Yeah.
I was going to give you a live update. G2's up 1 map.
Yeah.
And right now in map 2, Mouse has won 12 to G2's 8 rounds. So Mouse looks like take game 2.
Oh, wow, there you go.
Well, first thing first, as I was going to say, play the double smoke knife clip.
Oh, that's
I
right.
called it last time. It's there.
Even though they get past Hunter, they still don't know about Heavy God. Back turn though, he fires off very soon. Knife pulled for the Heavy God. Oh, another! He studied the blade.
So played that, but I mean, even if G2 do lose this map, I still go with them.
Yeah.
I think maybe it'll just be the Spirit Eternal Fire all over again. Mouse take map 2, and then G2 come back map 3. I'm going to go with my prediction for them, Dark Horse. And I guess my bracket had them and Spirit on opposite ends, because of course we didn't know the bracket at the time of recording last on Tuesday. But now I'll have it, and with, as everyone's been saying, the chinks in the armor of Spirit, if G2 take this, then I'm going to have them being Spirit and going all the way to grand final still.
There you go, taking down the top team. Eli, tell me, you've been watching Monase.
Yeah, I want to see Monase and Donk go up head to head.
Yeah,
that's what
there
I'm
you
looking
go.
for, and that's the same thing that Chris said. That's my pick for the grand finals: G2 versus Spirit. But I don't know, man. It's so hard to predict. These teams at the top seem so close together. There's really tiny margins of like difference between them. It's really just like which team doesn't have someone that's just burgering on the map. Like so there's usually one player that's just struggling, and it's like if nobody on your team is struggling and you're all at your full capacity and your reaction time to hit those flick shots is there, like you could beat just about any team, right? Like Mouse and G2 seem like they're extremely close. So I have no idea. If Mouse win this game too, I would not even bet on game 3 because it's a complete coin flip to me.
I think at this point I'm a G2 fan more than I am anything else, Kep. You with me?
Yeah, I agree. Mouse did just win that game. It's not that I'm watching the game. The stats website that I'm on is literally
Live
telling me.
updated.
Yeah.
So it is 1-1, but I'm also all in on G2 there. But see, where the mistake you guys made is you didn't pick Mongols to go to finals,
There you
right?
go.
And so Mongols is on the other side of the bracket. They are going to have to upset. I actually want to contest your point, right? I feel like, and again, this is my first season of watching Counter-Strike, but the expectation I have is Spirit and Vitality. They're supposed to be far and above away everybody else. That's the close competition. So when you see someone like Eternal Fire make Spirit sweat so much, it opens the door. Like, is Spirit that good, right? Is Donk worth the hype? Right? I don't know. From like someone who just came into the scene, he doesn't seem like he's the superstar. I don't want to put any disrespect on his name, right? Faker has bad games too, but it doesn't feel like it's that close. So if G2 is even in the conversation to go to the finals, like I feel like people are really not respecting what Donk is perceived to be, right? Now on the other side of the bracket, Mongols, they're going against what is, everyone agrees, is two of the top 3 teams, Navi. That's their first obstacle. If they beat Navi, well, then you got to go against Vitality. That's your IEM Katowice champions, right? So that's a hard side of the bracket, but I'm still putting Mongols in the finals. Mongols is going there, and Mongols, I don't care if they meet Spirit. I don't care if they meet G2, but if Spirit keeps playing the way they are, Mongols are going to be your champs. Calling it now.
There you go.
That's a bold prediction.
The one thing that will happen on this side is that we are going to play Ancient Map 3 against Mouse. And then once we do get to that map, Mouse has a 56% win on Ancient, and G2 has a 25%. So it's definitely not looking good for G2 for that map 3.
Yeah.
So I don't know what we'll see. But let's move on to the next match that we have, which are 2 playoff maps for the other side of the bracket, which is Vitality versus Liquid. So let's look at that one first. Eli, any chance Liquid can take it off of Vitality?
Don't play it safe.
I mean, the thing is, like, I know you guys are all in a bias. I'm not gonna be biased, bro. I just tell it like it is. Like, yeah, Liquid is from the same country as me, but I don't care, bro. Like, Vitality's just better. I'm sorry. Like, I don't think Liquid's gonna have a chance. We haven't seen. We saw some games from Liquid already that we watched that it didn't feel like they were playing up to their potential.
Up to snuff, huh?
Yeah, it didn't feel like they were really themselves yet.
Yeah.
So I don't know if they can come into their zone, perhaps there's a chance, but I think Vitality is just too good.
Yeah. Go to Kep. What do you think? Any chance?
Well, I'm not a communist like someone in this room, so Liquid all the way, right? At least until next round, then Mongols got them. But Liquid, I think are gonna. Yeah. I think Liquid's gonna upset Vitality. We all love a good underdog story, right?
Right.
And the storyline that I've seemed to have heard is that Liquid is a top tier team, but they kind of underperformed lately, right? That's what the CS:GO analysts tell me anyway. So I want to see Liquid start to upset that story, similar to Spirit. No one wants to see 2 Titans just run the bracket.
Yeah, absolutely. Chris?
Well, I'm following along with Kep here.
There you go.
Liquid. So my bold prediction for tomorrow is that Liquid will lose versus HLE, but Liquid in Counter-Strike will beat Vitality there. So they'll at least have one team beating the top team. And as he said, like, we don't want to see like all the giants run it. We love the underdog story. We love an A here. So I definitely want to see Liquid win. And then, obviously we could have a banger. If we're following Kep's storyline here, we see Liquid beat Vitality, Mongols beat Navi, and then we have that, banger quarterfinal or semifinal there of Liquid versus Mongols. So
We will see. We will see. I'm a Vitality on this one. I love Liquid. I hope they take it. I just don't think you can beat Zywoo and Flames on the other side. They're just looking so good. They rolled Mouse.
You're probably right, but I mean, your whole army service, you're dishonoring.
Yeah, I know. I do want Liquid to win. Don't get me wrong. I do like Naf. I do like Twiz. I think those are great players. It's just not if I'm going to take an underdog on the other side, I'm going to take the Mongols, which leads us to our next match. The Mongols are going to face off against Navi. Now, I'm not saying this is like the perfect scenario for the Mongols, but this is like the perfect scenario for the Mongols. They actually got the best route to be able to take down Spirit in the finals, which is what I think Eli and I called. So it's one of those where I really hope they're able to show up for that one.
Yeah, this is one where I did have Mongols defeating Navi, which I think the seeds would say otherwise, but I don't know. Mongols has a lot of upside. We just saw the news report that the Mongolian government is housing them and putting them up to practice, paying them a salary.
Yep.
It's like, I don't know. I guess there's two sides of it, but I feel like as a young player to like have the full freedom to invest all of your attention into the video game, you're just going to play your absolute best, and I think that's a big edge that Mongols has now.
Yeah, I mean, I think both of them are so close. They both 3-1, right? Round differential. Navi on paper, stat-wise, like in the really minor details, Navi is the better team. But I do think this could go either way. My prediction last week, only because I was different, was I did Mongols versus Vitality in the finals, right? But I also thought about Mongols and Spirit, so we all have the same alignment there. But yeah, I'm just cheering for Mongols. I just really like their style, right? I'm trying to find that team that fits me here. So right now, I'm Team Mongols. I hope they can pull it out against Navi. But that's all
you will get Mongols versus Vitality if everybody gets what they think is going to happen,
well,
which is Liquid getting smashed.
I'll get Mongols versus Liquid, actually.
What do you think, Chris?
Well, as I said in my previous rundown, I am with the Mongols beating Navi, so we can see the Mongols versus Liquid in the semifinals.
Yep.
I've been, when we run over with Ty, I've been able to, read down on everything, and Mongols seems like they are able to just pull up some clutch moments as well. And as Eli said, it could also be, knowing that they have that backing now, they have that full force and that push behind them, that drive to really do well now that they got such a big, component where they can just play. They know that their nation is behind them, which is always strengthening to whatever sport that you do play. So they can use that. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think for me the Mongol success really, I think Techno's got to be the one that shows up. He's the one that's been making play,
Yeah.
And he has been making plays, but that has to continue. And then ultimately, I think if is Alexi B the hard counter? Alexi B has been in the right spots, done a lot of things. He's got a good name in the space. I think he'll be an interesting matchup on that side, but I don't know. I'm excited to root for the Mongols on that one, though. Looks like Anubis and Train will be the bans on that side, too. Both of them have an instant one. And Navi has a 98% win percentage on Mirage. So if Mirage shows up, going to be a tough one for the Mongols on the backside. And they're just hoping they can get an Infernal on the pick as well. So at least we'll see the match and go from there. But ultimately, let's switch gears. Let's talk some good old Call of Duty. We spent last show talking about what happened last weekend, so let's talk about what's going to happen this weekend. First big match that I saw looking at this one is actually the first one of the day, which is Ultra versus Surge. Both top 4, top 5 teams. We've seen the Surge go up against the Thieves. Ultra's kind of up in the rising. We don't know if they're going to be able to show up and play against them, but Ultra have been coming out of nowhere and at least improving a little bit. But Kepley, you think that's going to be enough to go up against the Surge? Do you think that's just not going to happen?
I think it's a back and forth. I mean, I don't think either of these teams really stand out and shine, so I could honestly see this matchup go either way. I personally don't have to pick. I mean, if I throw something in there, I'll probably say Surge, right? Because I just think that they are a little more consistent, but this match is about as big of a coin flip as you can get to me.
Yeah, and if you look at Joe Deceives on the Surge, not the Surge, on the Ultra side, he is the one who actually just popped up against Optic as well, so he was one of those guys. So could be him being able to shine. We don't know. What do you think, Eli?
Isn't everyone popping off against Optic?
Yeah,
I mean,
true.
yeah, there was the world record, whatever, but I don't know. It feels like Surge is surging right now, no pun intended. Neptune and Abusa look insane together. They've just been taking over. Ever since Neptune joined this squad, it feels like they're just leveled up. And I gotta root for my Halo boy, Neptune. I'm gonna pick Surge on this one.
There you go. Chris, thoughts?
It's hard to go against them, especially hearing my co-caster on Ty with all his knowledge on COD rundown. I don't know. Like, it's Optic. just don't look good. Surge is looking good.
Yep.
Unless, as he said, maybe there's some throwing around there where Optic's trying to make this really weird, storyline of, oh, we suck, but now we're just going to get good in like 1 weekend going into this qualifier. I don't see it changing. I just see Surge continuing, their upward trend that they have right now.
Sure. I think the Ultra, Insight, and Kleenex are 2 names that we've seen over the past 2 years that have done really well for the Ultra. So that's kind of why it's possible that they can show up. I think this will be a first good match to start us off. The next one going at that, though, is going to be 100 Thieves and Optic, which
Oh, man.
I don't even know if we should talk about it.
Oh, we're talking about it. I'm putting it in the atmosphere. Optic wins 3-2. This is the time.
Where's the?
So, hold
Is
on.
it
take
best
the
of 5 or
opposite
best of 3?
Okay, that's
Whatever it is, they win by 1 game. This is the game, right? Every giant has its moment when it first wakes up. I feel like this is a rivalry that Optic can take seriously. If there's a moment to wake up and shine and get some respect behind your name again, it's right here. I'm calling it, man. It's not going to be. They're winning not only a game, they're winning the series. It's my hot take.
All right, listen, the way that happens is if the conspiracy theorists are correct and Optic have been intentionally throwing because they're betting on themselves or something. Who knows? And now that they've made the odds so bad against
Fred
themselves.
is back,
then
so that must be it.
like too soon. That's literally the conspiracy theory, though, is it not? Like,
Yeah, I don't know.
But then they're like, oh, now that everyone thinks we suck, like now we bet on ourselves and we actually try and we beat them. Imagine? No, I don't think it's. I'm not with the conspiracy theorists. I think Optics still need to figure it out. I think Thieves are just going to crush them.
3-0?
3-0.
3-0. Okay, cool. On to the next. Royal Ravens versus Miami Heretics might be something. I'm not really sure. I don't really want to dabble on it, if I'm honest. It's there. It could be something, but I have the Royal Ravens kind of taking this.
Let's go
one down.
Carolina.
Yeah,
Carolina, I
Carolina.
think
We're all going to be biased
We're all
there.
going Carolina there. Heretics breach right after that. So Miami gets to play twice in a row. Reals and Reals and Realm have been really good. We've seen that, right? The 2 R's on that side have been good against the Boston Breach. If I had to pick somebody for this one, I probably am leaning a little bit more Heretics than I am Boston Breach. Boston Breach did take Faze to a game 3 this past weekend against the Faze. So Boston Breach may prove me, wrong. But I kind of like the Heretics on their upward trend in some ways. So I don't know. What do you think, Kepley?
I think Boston right now has the bigger high. Going that well against FaZe, I think that speaks volumes to what your team can do. But this is like the story to me of inconsistency, right? Which one's going to actually show up today or Saturday? So I probably lean more Boston Breach, but that's again, there's so many coin flips outside of like the top of this division, right? That it could go either way.
Sure.
I agree, it could go either way, but my pick was Breach for my bracket. Honestly, not a whole lot of thought went into that one. It's just feels like Boston Breach, they're going to take them down.
That will probably, as I look at it now, I think it will be Breach. You guys are right. I was wrong. Stupid take to have at the beginning. After that, we have the Thieves going against the Rocker. That should be a quick 3-0. I think the next one might be a little interesting, though. Falcons versus the Ravens. The Falcons definitely will not win this. It will likely be a 3-0. But it's possible that Falcons are able to take a search off. I don't know if you guys have been watching the search from the Falcons. The hard points and everything else looks awful. The controls, not good. But Falcons may take the search off of the Carolina Royal Ravens. They actually look okay on it.
Are you saying the Falcons should just play Counter-Strike and replace their Counter-Strike team? They're good at search and destroy.
Hey, we are
respawns.
We're trending in the same direction, I think, for sure. Yeah, that seems about right. That one might be interesting as well. And then we'll have the Royal Raven. No, not the Royal Raven. We'll have the Gorilla Mates versus FaZe. I think this is a quick 3-0 as well. Some of these matches just seem like our tops and bottoms are not really getting there, and there's just a clear separation. And then Sunday, maybe the most notable matchup, C9 New York versus the FaZe as they show up. C9 on the rise. And I love Sib. I think he's been doing really well on that C9 roster. But I don't know, Kep, what do you think about that matchup?
I always like pulling for underdogs. Again, I'm an Optic guy, green wall, so I tend to not cheer for Faze just out of rivalry. But I mean, Faze does look just more consistent. Cloud9, they struggled against Boston Breach recently, which Faze did as well, right?
Sure.
I think C9's had a lot more lows, like lower lows than Faze right now. So I do think Faze overall should be the better team. But I'm so disappointed that this is your feature matchup because there's just the bottom of the bracket, just crap show brawl between LA Gorillas and Optic Texas. And that's another LA team. This is a reasonable 2-0 weekend for Optic coming in there, right? They're going to just take down LA as a whole. This is the time to flip the script.
Yeah, I mean, talking about the Faze Cloud9 matchup, it just feels like Thieves and Faze are kind of a step above everyone else right now. But I do think Cloud9 look really good, too. Like you said, Simp is looking insane. Nameless says that Simp's the best player in the game, so... I mean, he seems like he kind of knows what he's talking about sometimes. Maybe there's something to that, but does he have the ability to carry his team to defeat Faze? That's the question for me. It's like, even if you have a standout player, can you defeat a full roster of God Squad? I don't know. So I'm still going with Faze on that. And then I think Optic finally get their first win against the Gorillas.
Whoa.
That's my prediction.
The hot take over there on Sunday. Yeah, the New York roster, it's like, I'm looking at it and it's like Attached has been around playing forever. Mac is kind of there. Kremp has been at least a little bit positive, but not crazy. And so it's like, it's possible. I think it's definitely a flyer for sure when you look at Faze. I think Faze on paper is like definitely going to snag it, but I like the upward trend of New York. I think that they can do something. I think that Optic is just going to lose both matches 3-0 again, and 0-3 for them.
You think they're going to get 3-0'd by Gorillas?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's just like...
That's tough.
I know, but like, there's nothing that's shown me anything different.
A player like Shotzi will never lose that many games in a row, will he?
Very sad.
I hope not.
My heart is broken a little bit on it, for sure.
It hurts,
Absolutely.
man. At this point, I'm just got copium and we're just riding to the moon.
The Optic fanboy, yeah. I think they got to take this win, man. They got to take it.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting. Obviously, we could talk a little bit after this weekend. Next week, we'll talk a little bit through the playoffs and what it looks like as they go into their LAN, which will be in Texas. It'll be exciting. Everybody will be there. And we'll see who's able to perform this next couple weeks, this next week to get to the playoffs on that side. But switching gears a little bit, we're going to talk Spectre Divide. Nice 3v3 player. If anybody didn't see, it was kind of this Shroud back game where they had this mechanic where you'd have two players that you could play and you could switch between both of them. And you kind of use them and put different weapons on each one of them and move them around the map to kind of play in this, time warp thing where you're constantly switching back between your players. But ultimately, they announced that in 30 days, they're closing down their game. Was not successful enough for them as a business venture to be able to pay for itself. But, kind of disappointing, right? Hate to hear this news. And we're in this new era when games come out, and if they really don't catch fire, people aren't spending a lot of money trying to get them to a spot where they can continue sustaining. So that's definitely concerning, but I'm not really sure what to make of all this. Eli, what do you think about it?
I mean, like you said, it's a greater trend right now in gaming in general where these games that sometimes they have a lot of hype and a lot of vision on them at first, but the people that play it, they don't get hooked to it as they get hooked to the other games that they're playing. So they might play it for a few days with their buddies, but then their buddy stops playing it and they're like, well, now I don't need to play it anymore. And they just get back on Valorant or whatever the game they were playing before, right? So I don't know. This one didn't catch fire. I mean, the whole office, we were all playing Supervive recently. Yep. And then is anyone still playing Supervive? You're still playing Super? You guys are still playing Super? Why don't you hit me up? Man? We can be queued up for that.
We're trying to queue up for that, man.
Yeah.
But
I mean, it's a good game.
It is a good game. But it's like, I don't know. It is really hard, I think. This is the hardest time for a game to be successful in the history of games. And it hurts to see a game like Spectre Divide that had a lot of hype and backing to just kind of flop.
I'm pretty sure this is the game that Shroud was a part of the development for. The problem... I think Spectre Divide had a couple problems. One is that it came out around the same time as Valve's Deadlock. And I think that's what it's called, Deadlock, the MOBA shooter. Deadlock took off. Deadlock was so viral that even Shroud, who created Spectre Divide, was saying, wow, this sucks. This game is way better than mine. So really? your guy who backed it, he's constantly playing Deadlock. He's constantly crap talking his own game. Spectre Divide had some highlighting moments, but like it was a really complicated mechanic system overall, like controlling 2 players at once. I mean, me and Chris know from our Heart of the Heroes of the Storm day, right? You have one character where you can control multiple people, right? That's a really niche person can do that. There's a lot going on there. So I don't know. It's just a lot of moments. I think actually it's I always call this an FPS problem. FPS players are so hung to what they're playing. They don't like to try other things out. So like we see it a lot with the Call of Duty boys, right? Where Call of Duty, I can't remember the name of the game that just shut down too. Where
X-Defiant.
X-Defiant, right? X-Defiant was a really good game, but it's not Call of Duty. So why play it? Same thing when you get into this genre. You say, oh, it's Spectre Divide, but it's not Counter-Strike. It's not Valorant, right? It's not backed by Valve or by Riot. And we have another game that just came out. We'll talk more about that later if it blows up. A Fragpunk. It's kind of similar, but it's simpler, and it's kind of a blend between Counter-Strike and Call of Duty. Worth checking out, maybe. But Spectre Divide, it's just sad news. But what do you think?
I mean, I don't play, as you know, I'm like TFT, MOBAs type of person. And so usually I like to watch the shooters though. I remember getting into it, I first saw it when Tins was playing it, and I love watching Tins' stream no matter what he plays. I could not watch Spectre Divide. It just was slow. The graphics didn't look that good compared to others. And just like, okay, they're swapping, but what is it really doing at the end of the day? You lose 2 people, but you're with 3. Maybe they're trying to cut down on the amount of people that played to make it as one of the draws. But it just, as even from a spectator point of view, not even just playing, because I want to move over to that, because obviously for games to succeed now, you need to have a good viewer base, not just a player base as well. And I would see numbers drop, even for Tins, numbers would drop when he starts playing it. It gets back to Valorant, whoop, they go right back up again, right? So even if the mechanic or like the game was maybe a little bit prettier, it's not as much fun to watch. How long is it going to last, even if it survived on a player base for a little bit longer? I just couldn't see how it was fun, and then I kind of felt it. MOBAs were kind of the same way a couple years ago, 5 years ago, and Riot takes off. There's already Dota. Such as there's Counter-Strike and Valorant, then you have Heroes of the Storm coming out, you have Smite coming out. Now Smite and Heroes of the Storm are kind of falling off. We know the esports scene for Smite is kind of taking a dive now as well. So you have those two, back up, and it kind of feels, as Eli said, FPS are now kind of in that way. Everyone's trying to make that new FPS, but you already have like the 2 giants that are taking over. How can they get players to go over there when you already have 2 good games?
It's such a weird problem to solve, right? Because it's like you're making a new game, you want the game to be relatable to a certain player base that already exists. So then you end up kind of stealing some aspects of a certain title. But then if you don't make it better than the other one, why would people stop playing that one to play the new one? And it's a challenge, right? That's exactly what X-Defiant was, right? Let's make a game that's really similar to Call of Duty, but they just didn't make it as good as Call of Duty. So people played it for a little bit. Okay, this is boring. And then go back to Call of Duty. It's like, it seems to be the same cycle over and over. And people are struggling to really make a new revolutionary game. Like when Battle Royales took over, we got Fortnite, and then we got Apex, and then we got, Warzone, all these different things that took over. But it's like, okay, now that genre, people that love it are going to stick to that. It's like we kind of need almost a whole new genre at this point for games to take off.
Do you think it was the amount of players kept? Do you think it was the 3v3 that maybe hurt it?
I mean, it's different, right? I think it's just like the complexity of the mechanics, right? Even though, the goal is to be flashy, the goal is to have highlight moments, right? Shroud is this huge shooter guy. I think it's a combo of mechanics, and then more importantly, like I think with any product really, that if the guy who influenced making it is publicly saying that it's not good compared to this other thing, why would I play it?
Yeah, he kind of tanked it himself in some ways when you think about it. But I think also what you're getting at with the complex mechanics is barrier to entry, right? Like if you need to appeal to not just really skilled players, because there's a small percentage of those. Like not everyone's really skilled. So you want to have a game that's playable for average Joe that gets off work from his 9 to 5 and he wants to relax with his boys, but then he's getting destroyed by some cracked 17-year-old and he's like, I don't want to play this anymore. So it's a really difficult balance right now as a game dev.
It is, and it's like I keep thinking about it from like, how do you make somebody that plays one game consistently to like find a new consistent game? Because I think all of us have dabbled. A new game comes out, you play it for a couple weeks. It'll be like the Fall Guys phenomenon.
Yeah.
Everybody's playing
Among
Fall
Us.
Guys, Among Us phenomenon. It
Yeah.
was there for a little while. Spectre Divide, I did spend some time playing, and I enjoyed it. It was fun to play. It was competitive. It was definitely slow and a little bit. I think the mechanic is a little bit new and unorthodox and kind of complex, right? And sometimes those don't play well into it. It's kind of like I think a little bit of the Splitgate issue. It's like, yo, there's a skill gap for the portals, right?
Yes, for sure.
And then once you grab onto this player base, not being able to hold on to it becomes like a really big crux for you, right? And then there's the money side, right? And so like, if I'm a guy and I'm trying to start a game and I want to make money doing it, you only have so much money to be able to fund that project. Maybe I have a 2-year runway. I have to make the game and then keep the servers live and then keep all the staff live. And then we know you need updates. You need all these different staff to keep this stuff running. And maybe you just don't have the lead time. Like maybe they thought it was going to be more successful and they just ran out of money along the way. You only have one choice when you run out of money. You have to stop doing the thing you're doing.
Yeah.
You have to go declare bankruptcy and go on to the next thing and do whatever you want to. Chris, you look like you were going to say something.
I mean, thinking on that of how do you pull people, I was kind of thinking about, rivals, and then it made me also think about heroes. Obviously, there's Overwatch, but when you look at rivals, and it's kind of the same when you went from League to Heroes, is that you have 2 IPs that are noticeable. And, okay, I want to play Overwatch, but now I can play, as Marvel characters. Everyone knows Marvel characters, especially with the MCU blowing up as it is. It's not just comic book nerds anymore. It's now everyone who watches the movies, and they're like, oh, now I can go play that character. Kind of the same with Heroes of the Storm. Even though League was so big and you still had Dota at the time, you pull in all of the IPs from Blizzard, and all of a sudden I can play Kerrigan against Arthas, right? I can play Tychus versus Murky Lost Vikings, and I think those games were successful in their ways because they had, different mechanics, obviously different maps, for Heroes of the Storm, but you could play as those noticeable characters, and it was able to bring people in and make them sit down because I can play as my favorite characters against other ones. You pull in something like Spectre Divide, completely new IP, there's nothing in it that really pulls you in, and it just kind of like at that point,
it lacked relevance.
Yeah.
It just really wasn't relevant.
There's that real wow factor, and then I guess the wow factor, as you said, it was supposed to be that flashy game where you're playing 2, so maybe you can set up your 2 different, characters, in spots that maybe cover the same zone, and then you're able to, get one headshot here, and then you pull over to someone else and flank them and help your teammate get a second kill, and, it's cool on paper, but how do you really, pull it and tie it in when obviously you can make op shots in, Counter-Strike or in Valorant, you can get, some really cool ults to kill people as well there. And it just, I'm thinking about, how does a new shooter do that, that doesn't pull the Marvel Rivals route on, I'm going to just pull these Marvel heroes or DC heroes or some well-known IP. How do you make it completely out of scratch? And it just seems really hard to do.
Well, it's interesting to talk about that. So Heroes of the Storm, right? You and me, that was our jam, right? Mm-hmm. Heroes of the Storm solved a problem. Everyone looked at MOBAs, they looked at League, they looked at Dota. Everyone hated the laning phase, right? It's just this like every game, 5, 10, whatever minutes of just farming. Heroes pretty much took that out. Like there's still some farming, right, for levels, but it was all XP based. The team got XP together, right? So Heroes solved a problem. For shooters, it's hard to find that. This is actually why I think that the sleeper I talked about earlier, this is why I think Fragpunk is interesting, because Fragpunk is solving a problem that I think is really niche in some of these shooters, whereas normally like in Counter-Strike, if you go to the end of the round, it's just, did you plant the bomb or not? Well, if you go to in overtime in Fragpunk, it's a continuous series of gulags, right? 1v1. So if you have a superstar player on the team who can do it, right? It's me versus, me and Eli versus you two. Eli's up first in the gulag. If he kills you, well, then it resets and now he goes against Chris, right? But if you damage him to 50 health, he goes up against Chris with only 50 health, right? So you get
it's almost like a crew battle from Smash.
Yeah, so you can get these you can get these really neat clutch highlighting moments. So from a viewership perspective, like that's interesting, right? Because it's different from any other game. Everyone loves Warzone for the gulag, right? The gulag's sick, you die, you get to 1v1 for your life. Just imagine like the clutch scenes and highlights that could come, right? That's something where I think you get a different take on the FPS, whereas I don't feel like Spectre Divide really had a niche, right? It was just, oh, you're a shooter, go make flashy plays. So I can do that in any game, right? But in this one, it's like, hey, I literally 1v5 to carry like this round, and I can do it over and over again. So if you have skill, like you can really express skill there. I don't know, it could be neat. I hope it gets a little bit of attention and starts taking off because it does look good. It's like a blend, right? A little bit of that tactical shooter, a little bit of that Call of Duty arcadey, mix it together, right? So you're just a little bit faster than a Call of Duty,
Sure.
or a little bit slower than a Call of Duty, I'm sorry, but a little faster than like a CSGO. Could be neat.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that it is sad to see this happen. It's sad to see it happen in any game that we like, that we love, that we want to stay around. And so, RIP, Spectre Divide. We love you, but there will be a better game one day. I always say this: the best esports games haven't actually been created yet because we haven't had one that really hits all the boxes at the same time. And I think we always come up with new things like this ISO thing that Valorant has the ISO thing. You can 1v1.
Yeah.
So the Gulag, it's all. Like you see them in all these other games, and it's just like has to be combined in the right way. So hopefully we see another game coming up that's combined and better, and that we all fall in love with in some ways.
One thing we all want.
Yep.
It's all on Halo. Halo, give us the BR. You're the game. You're the game set to take over that whole genre.
It was in development and they scrapped it. I don't know.
There you go. Sad day. In other news, let's switch gears a little bit. We're gonna talk some team fight tactics. If you're out there, team fight tactics, great game. Very casual to jump into in the beginning, but has a ton of depth. It's kind of like this chess measurement of being able to put those rosters together. But they're having, it's not called the World Championship, but
Tactician's Cup.
the Tactician's Crown.
Yes.
Is what it says right here in front of me. But it's like one of these big events. But Eli's gonna, actually, let's go with Chris. Chris is gonna open us up to this and just kind of introduce it for us so that we can understand a little bit more and see what's going on this next week.
Yeah, so essentially it is like kind of Worlds. Basically, Tactician's Crown is the end of the set where they do bring all the regions together to battle out. This one will be online, I believe. The first two will be online, and then, or the first three sets for this year will be online, and then the last one will be in Paris as an open. So the finals will be an open there. But again, it is bringing all the best talent from all the regions. And unlike most games, they bring 40 players because it is an 8-person lobby. So the first day will be 40 players playing in 6 games. Every 2 games, they will shuffle those players, though, so that they can pretty much play against almost everyone. And then after 6 games, they will be cut down to the top 32, which will go to day 2. And then they'll pretty much keep playing from there. They'll play in different lobbies. After 2 games on day 2, though, they'll cut it down 8 again to the 24, so on and so forth until they get to the top 8, which will play on the last day on Sunday, on the 16th, where it's basically a checkmate format. So whoever gets 21st and then wins the game after that will be crowned the Tactician Crown champion. So it's going to be a lot of fun, and personally I'm really excited about this one because first things first, it is Arcane, so the theme of this set is based off of Arcane, but I think it is one of the
Arcane
most,
being the Netflix show.
The Netflix show, our basically jump into the world of Runeterra, which is the overall universe for Riot Games. All their games kind of tie into the Runeterra universe. That's where we get all our champions from for League of Legends in that Runeterra universe there. So we get to see that, but I also think it's one of the most balanced patches for a Tactician's Crown that we are going into.
Perfect. Speaking of balanced, Eli, just tell us a little bit. Is this one of those games where you can predict who these top 8 are going to be? Are they pretty consistent in nature, or can anybody show up any given day and just kind of get lucky and win?
I mean, TFT is one of those games where there's a nice blend of skill and luck. That's one of the reasons people that know me personally know how much I love poker. It's another game that blends skill and luck, and that's maybe what attracts me to TFT. But there's some players that are like, based on how much luck is in the game, it doesn't make sense how consistent they are. Like, for example, Title is going to be in this one. He's won 2 world championships. He's got 2nd place in another, I think 6th in another. So he's the faker of TFT is what people call him. He's from Japan. And I expect him to be in the top 8 almost certainly. There's a couple other players. TFT is also interesting because the entire game changes like every 3 months. Like, it's all new. It's the same base game, but totally different mechanics and traits and ways that you can play. So some players are like better at some sets than others. Right now, our North American representative, Dish Soap, I think is one of the strongest looking players.
Love Dish Soap, big fan of that.
Yeah, Dish Soap is probably who I want to win the most. I watch his stream a lot. He's really funny. He's just an incredibly talented player, but it's gonna be good, man. There's the meta, like Chris said, is really defined right now to where there's a lot of different ways that you can play, and it's going to allow for some really creative, big brain plays from these guys.
Chris, on the meta, I mean, what is it right now? Is it reroll? Is it everybody's going to go one thing? You know, what is it?
So I do think reroll is really strong right now. You have comps such as for Quick Striker, you have the Kim Baron Ambushers, you know, Cassiopeia reroll as well for Dominators has seen a little more success than the actual Soko for cost Dominator. But again, as you know, Eli was talking about, you know, it has been defined a lot. So maybe the Kim Baron has actually seen a lot more play, so we might see some of that as well. But of course, sometimes that is a first or eighth comp, so it can be dependent on that. But we have seen other things such as Sorks. Black Rose Sorks have been doing really, really well. I'm wondering if we'll see, we've had a buff to Shapeshifters as well, so I wonder if we'll get any of that meta thrown in there. So I do expect to see some of the reroll comps, especially like Kim Baron Ambusher, to be towards the top, but then I do think we can see some of them pull out maybe some niche comps, such as maybe a Shapeshifter comp that we haven't really seen too much, you know, pull it up if some of these other bigger comps are contested to, you know, pull out some wins there.
Cap, TFT player, what do you think about it?
I know a little bit. You know,
Yeah.
I'm not very good at TFT. I've never been good at it. There is a sprinkle of luck, but you know, the more I've looked into TFT, the more I've realized you can kind of make your own luck, right?
Sure.
In a way, right? Because you only have so many champions, I guess they call them, per pool, per star. But then also, another thing I learned the other day is that within each carousel, like you can influence the items that you're going to get because there's a certain pool that you pull from. And so then it increases your odds to find that item later on. So you can kind of manipulate comps in that way. I don't know, man. I'm so bad at these games. My big turnoff for TFT is like the randomness of the items, but maybe it's because I just don't understand how the mechanic works. So I've always been a fan of like the originals, like the Dota Underworld, or like I don't even know what the original is called, but it was just built into the Dota system.
Yeah.
They just don't have the item RNG, so you add the tactician RNG on top of the item RNG, and I suck at it, man.
I mean, there's also augment RNG that you can manipulate. Like, there is a pretty big barrier to entry. You have to like study a lot of different mechanics to get really good at TFT. But you touched on two of the major ones that do separate like the grandmasters from the challenger players is how to manipulate the odds. And like, I don't know, these guys, and what's really crazy about TFT is they patch it every single week and they change the way these mechanics and these manipulations work. So you have to constantly keep up with it and read out all the patch notes, but you can guarantee all 40 of these players that are going to Worlds have been up to date with the patch notes. And I think it's going to be a really interesting show because there's some players that like have crutches of certain comps they always go to, like, oh, I'm just really comfortable playing sorcerers, so I'm going to play sorcerers as much as possible. But then what if there's a game where the other guy's playing sorcerers? Now there's way less champs in the pool for you to choose from. So now you got to be malleable and play something else. So the best players are usually the ones that are most adaptable. So if they look at everyone else in the lobby and then they pick a comp that no one's playing because they'll have the least chance of being contested. So that's where we're going to see those players shine.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about is like if somebody's going Shapeshifters because that just changes it to become really hot, like how quickly do you transition to something else? Myself, I'm a little bit of a cheater where I just go to a website like Metabolics or whatever, and I'm like, hey, what is the current meta? What do I need to pick? Here's my rank. Tell me what to buy. And those have been really helpful. So if you suck at TFT, just Google the current meta, go on there, and then you can be able to play yourself. And it is fun. It's fun, especially when you build something that's like super cheesy that just like smokes everybody. It's super strong, and you just win and you fight your way through gold. And you're like, this is amazing. I'm having a great time, and I'm watching Gladiator 2 while I do it. And so all these things matter. But it is a fun game. We will definitely see this, and hopefully we can cover it in some capacity. But if you love TFT, please tell us your current meta that you think is going to be the staple of the Tactician's Crown. Any closing statements from anybody on anything we talked about today?
I guess one last thing to add for TFT, they will be announcing the next set. Yeah. When there's usually a bunch of leaks about like what the next set's going to be. I haven't seen a single leak at their. Everyone's keeping their mouth shut. So I'm going to be excited to see they're going to finally reveal it this weekend. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah. I imagine it'll be themed around the league season, right? Everything's Noxus themed right now. So I imagine you'd lean pretty heavy into that.
They have said the theme is like Cyber
City.
Cyber City.
So we're going to see some. I'm expecting to see some of the project skins.
Yeah.
That project skin line. So like Fiora, Senna, etc., who have that project skin, Lucian as well. We might see because of that. But it's always interesting to see what other skin lines they throw in with that theme. That sometimes they don't really make much sense, but they're kind of fun to throw in there. So we'll have to see what they do there because as I said, like the cyberpunk theme is really, you know, pulling me into it. So I'm excited for that.
So
as well.
jealous of TFT. League could learn something from them, man. They have such good skins and assets.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
great game. Love to play it. Cool. It's been awesome queuing up with you. Go ahead. What were you
I
gonna
was
say,
going to
Chris?
say one more thing. If you guys check in the Discord, I wanted to play it real quick because we have some of these lines that might be getting kind of close to being taken. Right now, I want to know
Is this
what
when they
y'all
ban?
think. No, so this is what they pick. So we have like the meta that's kind of the first pick. These are kind of what we're seeing in the second, third games that are kind of the little off meta stuff here. I'm personally leaning towards the Volibear Yasuo being the next 2 picks. I could definitely see someone like Zeka picking the Yasuo and then maybe seeing like a Volibear top out of Zeus or something like that, or even Volibear jungle. Any lions that anyone has, or maybe even like one of these like 4 lions where we see Thresh or God, Swain and LeBlanc picked.
Yeah, I think Volibear is pretty likely. I'm just looking at this card. I would have picked Volibear today, actually, and watching the matchup in Game 3. If I was Hanwha, I would have picked Volibear. I feel like it was a great matchup for him. I don't think a lot of these Olaf, you know, there's some Olaf players there. Yasuo, maybe. I don't feel like Yasuo. Zach actually would be your best to complete this bingo card, but Zach, I don't think he'll be seen as much because he was really strong in lane swaps. He was super safe there. So now, like, you might see him if you need like a tanky AP jungler, but that's like the only role he feels right now.
So help me understand this, and we'll link it so you guys can see it in the YouTube video. But ultimately, this is picks from different teams on Game 2 moving forward.
No, it's if this is picks. So they're pulling from a group that are pretty much the
just in
off
general.
meta. Like they would consider not the most meta picks that we would see. So of course, like when they're getting
Dude, no
the
Set?
Yumi's game
What's the
pick,
deal? Set's not meta?
he's not
What
as
the heck?
meta right now.
Dude, Set's a brawler up top, bro. Like, I'm not playing against the
Set got
top.
replaced by Cassante.
Yeah.
Ah, got it. Okay, cool.
Cassante is Set, but better.
Okay, got it. No, that's interesting. Well, and obviously we've been talking about Fearless, but you know, the more and more that goes deeper, people are going to have to reach into their different skill pool, you know, champion pools, and we're going to see some best of 5s coming up in the first 10 in the playoffs. So we're going to see some of these.
I would go with the second column. I think we're going to see a Senna and a Philios. Or Urgot would probably be the most surprising one, but it'd be pretty damn cool to see.
If FlyQuest was there, we'd see Urgot.
Yep,
Yeah.
that's true.
Flippo special.
Yeah.
As Seraphine was almost picked today. I mean, she was banned. So
Yeah, Seraphine's a beast as well.
Seraphine's got some lineups there too. So I could see some of these. LeBlanc, a little less likely, but if I'm going for bingo, I think Zach is your most reasonable pick there.
There you go. Well, join us for some bingo. We'll be covering it all. But we've appreciated you. Thank you for being here. Thanks for making it to the end of the video. If you have any questions, comments, throw them in there. Let us know who you think's going to pop up next in the bingo card as we get into the first 10 playoffs. But it has been an amazing afternoon. Thanks for joining us. We will see you. Bye-bye.